Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's good to be back standing up here again and seeing all your smiling faces. You know, the song we just sang, the Prayer of St. Francis, is kind of what I'm going to talk about today, and that is spirituality. So, if I ask you what your religion is, you're probably going to answer me really quickly, right? You're going to say, I'm a spiritualist, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Methodist, I'm a pagan, whatever it might be. But if I ask you, what is your spiritual path? You probably can't answer it as quickly. You probably have to take a moment to think about what your path is. Where is your spirituality? So, my question is someone that is considered religious also spiritual? Is someone who is considered spiritual someone who is religious? Kind of some interesting questions to think about. As I was growing up, I was always a little disturbed about the term religion. Maybe it wasn't so much about that specific term, maybe it was more about organized religion. I remember talking to a friend of mine, and the conversation ended up talking about doing something religiously. And religiously means doing something over and over again, without fail. It becomes a part of your life, and you do it without thinking about it. And I think that sometimes happens when it comes to religious practices. I grew up, for the most part, in a Roman Catholic household. The religious practice was to go to church every Sunday, go to confession periodically, and celebrate the religious holidays, even though the focus on those religious holidays and in the family gatherings really wasn't on the purpose of that holiday. I was never really taught what to do in between all those things. And I think that happens a lot to a lot of people. And that has always bothered me. So, back to my childhood, as we were walking home from church, I was walking with my aunt and uncle who had raised me. My aunt said something derogatory about a woman she knew. And at 10 years old, that really confused me, because it didn't go with what the priest had said during the sermon. And I thought about that for years. And then one day I had an aha experience. And that was when I recognized that there might be a little difference between religion and spirituality. They may go together, they may not. But here's what I think. I think that spirituality goes to a deeper level, and it is a life journey and a path that each of us chooses to follow. And sometimes we are guided to walk a specific path. There is no right or wrong way, and it may or may not involve following the doctrine of a church. Although I do think that many religions are the basis for us to start our spiritual path. It gives us something. It gives us maybe a little push to go in a direction. And you know what? My path is not better than yours, and yours is not better than mine. They just are. Our spiritual journey is all about our relationship with the divine infinite intelligence, God, or whatever name you choose to call that energy. It's not a straight path. It has many curves and turns, and my guess is all of you know that it's very bumpy, and sometimes those bumps are very big and sometimes very long. But I believe that we take these paths to find the ultimate love. As we develop our relationship with the divine, we become closer to the truth. And when I say truth, I think of our principle 5. Truth is eternal. We seek truth within ourselves, from other souls, sacred writings, and the natural order which sustains us. So as we develop our relationship with the divine, we might find that doors are opened to us. But it's up to us whether or not we choose to go through those doors. I'd like to share one of my experiences about that. For many years, I lived in the Washington, D.C. area. I had a job that I absolutely loved. I had a townhouse that was my dream home. I had a lot of friends, and I had a decent social life. But then one day, a friend of mine called me, and she said, "Did you see the job at the Veterans Administration in Northampton, Massachusetts? Isn't that where you're from?" And I said, "Yep, it is." She said, "I think you should apply for that job." And I'm thinking, I don't want to move. I like my life here. But somehow, I ended up applying for the job. I figured I probably won't get it anyways, but, I'll appease her. She'll be happy. And I got the job. I really wasn't expecting that. So, I moved back to Massachusetts. I really didn't like the job. No, let me rephrase that. I hated the job. It was the job from hell. If there ever was a hell, that was that job. So I prayed about that, and I said, what have I gotten myself into? A few months later, my old boss from Washington, D.C. called me, and he said, "Come back and work for me again." And I said, "I don't want to move." He said, "No, you don't have to. You can stay in your house and you can work from home." I'm like, how can I refuse that? So that's what I did, and I stayed in that job until I retired. Now, the interesting thing is, when I retired, I decided to take a vacation. And I'm like, where am I going to go? I decided to go to Salem. So I went to Salem, and I was walking around, and I said, you know what? Since I'm here, I should get a reading from somebody. I don't know anybody here. And I'm like, some of these places have some really bizarre, strange energy that I don't want any part of. So I said, okay, Spirit, tell me where I need to go. So I'm walking down the street one day, and all of a sudden I feel pulled into the store. So I went in there and had a reading by one of the medium psychics. She was wonderful. She was right on. And then she told me that I needed to find a spiritualist church in the area that I lived. I didn't know what a spiritualist was. So I thought, okay, I'll try it. I like going to different churches. I like experiencing different religions. So I ended up here at TNSA. And it was here that I learned about spiritualism. And I also found myself on a path to ordination. None of those would have happened if I hadn't gone through those doors. And each and every one of those doors brought something to me. The one thing that really hit me was when I grew up and I was a teenager, I remember sitting on our front stairs and I'm like, I can't wait to get out of here. I cannot wait to leave this area. So I joined the Army, got me out of the area for sure, and I had promised myself that I would never return back here. What's that old saying, never say never? And I ended up back here. I was shocked. I was shocked that I had done that, and I was shocked that I had accepted that position. But now I was trusting the divine to do whatever the will of the divine was and not mine. It was a struggle at first, but then some amazing things started to happen. I started to heal inside from my past. I met some wonderful people. And I got ordained. I was led to the path of ordination. Those were just a few of the things that have happened. And I bet when you look back on your own life, you can see those moments when the doors were presented to you. And whether or not you walked through with them was your choice. So, as you can see, there's nothing religious about any of that. But it is all divine. And that is where the spiritual path starts, is with the divine. The basis for a spiritual journey is love. It's a divine love. When I say that, I mean that we have the intent in our heart to live in that divine love and light. Not always an easy thing to do. We take moments to examine ourselves as to why we don't like something, why we are prejudiced about something, to find out where we are. And self-honesty, I think, is one of the hardest things that we can do. But it does open our hearts, and it lets that light in. The journey. Actually, I think our journey is a very personal thing for us, but yet it's universal because we are all connected. But how do we start with that journey? What do we do during that journey? I think there are some commonalities with all of us on that spiritual journey. And here are just some of them. Talking to the divine. What does that mean? It means praying. Listening to the divine and our higher selves, which is meditation. This one's a hard one. Learning to be non-judgmental about others. We all want to be right. We all know we have the right answer. And most of us like to be in control. So if we see somebody that's not acting in a way we think they should be, that's being judgmental. If we don't like somebody because of the religion they practice, or the color of their skin, or the color of their eyes, that's being judgmental. And that's where we need to take a look inside. First, we have to recognize that. Another very important factor is participating in your spiritual community, or communities. I have two. This means becoming involved and taking action within that community. It's not just about going to the service and donating money. It's about action. We can't and shouldn't sit back and rely that somebody else is going to take care of whatever the issue is. We need to become a part of it, because it is through our actions that we become closer to finding the truth and living in the light of the divine. Another thing is aspiring to do everything with love, with that divine love, that intent. I say aspiring because none of us are perfect. It's progress, not perfection. And there are times then we certainly don't have that love in our hearts. We might get angry, we complain, we focus on the negative, we allow fear to take over. And you know what? These are the lessons. These are the times. These are the opportunity for us to practice our spiritual beliefs. It's an opportunity to look at ourselves within and find the true reason for why we're angry or why we're complaining. I was looking at Facebook this morning, and I want to read to you a story because I think it makes a really good point. Here we go. The street light turned yellow, so he stopped his car at the crosswalk instead of accelerating through the intersection to beat the red light. The woman who was driving behind him got really angry and started honking her horn. She was extremely mad that she missed her chance to cross the intersection behind him. And because stopping the car made everything on her lap drop to the floor, her cell phone, makeup, and half a sandwich, she was still in the middle of yelling and cussing at the man in front of her when she heard a tap on her window and looked up to see the face of a very serious police officer. He ordered her to exit the vehicle with her hands up and took her down to the police station to be searched, fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a holding cell. After a couple of hours, she was escorted back to the booking desk, where the arresting officer was waiting with her personal belongings. I'm very sorry for this mistake. When I pulled up behind your car, you were blowing your horn, flipping off the guy in front of you, and cussing up a storm. But it didn't make sense. You have the "What Would Jesus Do" license plate frame on the car, the Namaste decal on the back window, and the Coexist bumper sticker. So I figured you had stolen the car. My bad, is what he said. So that's the perfect example. She had a lot of lessons there to be learned. And I think driving usually is the time when we really get to look at ourselves. I often wondered how the Dalai Lama and Mother Teresa, if they drove, if they would ever have the same reactions as we all probably sometimes do. Speaking of which, there are 3 posters behind me. And they all have sayings, and they all have teachings about how to live our lives. Take a look at them after service or at another time, if you so choose, and think about the words and the sayings that are up there and how they can apply to your life. As a spiritualist, there are also principles which guide us on our path. We read them at the very beginning of service. Refer to those. For the more we practice our belief, the greater our relationship will come with the divine. We cannot get there by sitting on our hands. It takes action. Actions done with the intent of divine love. Even the Bible addresses this. In 1 John chapter 3, verse 18 says, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth." So I encourage each and every one of you to periodically stop what you are doing, especially in those moments when you're feeling a little something going on that doesn't feel quite right, and ask yourself what it is you are doing, and is it motivated by love? Take some time before you go to bed, review the day. What did you do that you did out of that divine love, and where did you not do it, and why did you not do it that way? Again, we're all human, so don't beat yourself up if everything doesn't go well all the time. Because all of those times are lessons for us, to progress. Now, I've had this happen in my life, and I'm sure you all have too. You're uncertain as to where you are headed in your spiritual journey. You may be finding that you're not getting as much spiritual fulfillment as you thought you would. You might be stuck. I recommend that you talk to a minister or someone that you feel is spiritual. Doesn't matter what kind of faith base there is, what faith practice they have. Because what is important is that you follow your heart and your spiritual path. And with that, I leave you with the blessings of the divine. Thank you.